Good evening and welcome to the Town of Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals public meeting for Monday, February 27th. We have a few simple procedures that we follow here. We'll take care of a little bit of business first, but when we get to the hearing portion of the schedule, we will read the appeal into the minutes. We will then ask the applicant to come to the table, tell us what they want, why they want it, what their hardship is. It's incumbent upon you to give us a hardship. Some of us up here may or may not have some questions. After that, we'll open it up to anyone, interested parties in the audience, if they may have questions. That's pretty much it. Our first item is to review and approve minutes. Has anyone had the opportunity to read them?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anyone have any changes, comments?
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. That's interesting. Who signed in lieu of Paul?
You can sign, or you can have another member sign for him.
Okay. And you can sign right there. Next item is to approve 3 bills. There's a $262 bill to the T&G for the January legal notices, $157 to B&B Printing for stationery for our mailings, and $50 for a member to attend training on March 17th.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Who's going with me?
I'm going.
You're going?
Did you already sign up?
Yeah, I got my letter saying I was approved.
They'll sign up through the planning board.
Yeah. This is the last one I'll be able to go to unless they change their courses, though. I've now taken every course.
Oh, good for you.
That's good.
Which date is this one?
You'll have to get a certificate then.
This CPTC conference at Holy Cross. It's on Saturday, March 17th.
Just be waiting. Mary Beth. We just need 3 signatures on this.
Say again?
2 more signatures, you and Mary Beth, and then we're covered.
Coffee's good at the college, and so's the pastry. Good
Always
these are big
important.
ones. One year we had a large snowstorm.
Not March 17th, though.
It was.
Oh, God.
Thank you. Which brings us to our first 6:30 hearing, which I will be recusing myself, and Mr. Chesky will be reading into the agenda.
I'll read the notice into the record. To hear the appeal of Fifth Ave LLC, care of Nancy Castle, 4 Richard Ave, Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 4-B, to raise an existing single-family dwelling and reconstruct a new single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 9 Fifth Ave. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's tax plate 31, Plot 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. As you know, but for the record, my name is Richard Ricker, and I represent Nancy Castle, who's seated to my right. She is the principal of the LLC, which owns the subject property. If I could hand out some...
You may.
Not terrific renditions, but these are renditions of the proposed...
Pardon me, Mr. Ricker.
Yes.
I'd like to point out that there are only 4 members serving this evening, and that you have the option of proceeding or waiting until we have a full member board, which would not require a unanimous decision.
I understand that, Mr. Shatsky. However, you told me too late, so it's too late. This is a classic special permit. This is an absolute classic request for special permit. It is my belief that you, as a board, will see that this is a proposal to better this neighborhood and to better this property. And it is in the interest of the town and the neighborhood in general and the general public to see a proposal like this endorsed by the board with an approval. This is, as I suggested, a special permit. There are two requests before you tonight. First, the one for 9 Fifth Ave, which is this house right here. The houses that are presently on the lot are shown in the lower right-hand corner here. They are somewhat juxtaposed on the lot. What we did is we utilized the Mass General laws in order to split this lot in half because it had 2 houses on it. And once that was accomplished, we realized that the lot line, if you were to divide the lot in the best possible way, lot line runs right through one of the houses. That is not necessarily a problem for us because what Ms. Castle wants to do is rebuild these 2 houses, first 9 Fifth Ave, into brand-new houses, as you can see on the renditions that are before you. As I stated before, this lot has been already divided. It has been divided as equally as we could do it. The plan was approved by the engineering department. We have run these plans by the folks at engineering, planning, the building department, all to favorable reviews because of the nature of the really incredible improvement to this particular property. As you know, this is right on the lake. This is not an unusual request because you've seen these plenty of times before, and you'll see some more, I'm sure. But that is it in a nutshell. I would suggest, again, it is a classic special permit because it is a request that is within keeping with the intent of the bylaw. Clearly, this would be a single-family use on each one of these lots. It will not generate any harm, nuisance, or otherwise, which would be detrimental to the general public or to the neighborhood at all. So again, it's a classic special permit, and I would ask you to approve it. If you have any questions, of course, we're here.
Yes, sir.
Does it derogate from the intent of the bylaw, Mr.?
Absolutely not. This is, as I...
Forgot that.
Well, this isn't a variance, Mr. Gordon. So, no, it does not. This clearly does not, because it is a single-family use, as I alluded.
When were these houses built originally? In the 50s?
I think closer to the 40s. I think closer to the 40s. Early 40s.
I want to say it was like 38.
38, maybe?
And this is basically, these are basically the last 2 houses on the street that haven't had something done to them. Is that correct?
On Fifth Avenue, yes. If you, I'm sure you went down to Fifth Ave. You saw it. The bottom line is these are the last 2 that need to be done, frankly. So, and I'm sure that the other neighbors in that neighborhood will be happy to see that cleaned up. So,
That was the only thing I had. I'm fine.
I have no questions. When today?
I'm fine.
Would anyone in attendance like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, we'll consider the matter, and you'll be notified of our decision.
thank you.
And we'll close that hearing and start our next 6:30 hearing to hear the appeal of 9th Fifth Ave LLC, care of Nancy Castle, 4 Richard Ave, Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 4B, to raise an existing single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 9A Fifth Ave. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 31, Plot 10-1. Now, before you introduce yourself, I'd like to remind you or suggest to you that you have the opportunity to either be heard this tonight with a 4-member board or continue the hearing to another occasion where you could have the benefit of a full member.
I've discussed it with my client, and we'd prefer to go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Again, Richard Ricker, I represent the petitioner, Nancy Castle, 9 Fifth Ave LLC. She's the manager of the LLC. She's seated to my right. This, again, is a proposal. This is the other half of basically the proposal. This is presently 9A Fifth Ave. We would be working with the assessors to change that to 11 Fifth Ave because the next house here is 13, so it makes sense. They were, as I noted previously, one lot. Houses were therefore 9 and 9A. Now that they are split, and now that they are divided, they can be properly labeled 9 and 11. Again, this is a request to allow her to demolish the present structure on the lot, and with that to reconstruct a brand-new residence, which she would, I'm not sure which one she would sell, but both of these residences are shown on the renditions that I've given you in the previous hearing. Nancy does plan on residing in one of these houses. It is obviously good for the neighborhood, good for her, good for the general public. It does not derogate from the intent of the bylaw, Mr. Gordon, because it is to rebuild for a single-family use. It is a request for a special permit without any nuisance value, any harm to the neighborhood, and I would suggest, in fact, this would be a great improvement to the neighborhood and a great improvement to the property, therefore falling within the guidelines and the definitions and requirements for a special permit for this purpose. And with that, if you have any questions.
These are both pre-existing, non-conforming.
Yes.
And
the lot lines, I know your question, the lot lines will not be further encroaching. We were careful in the plans to not further the sideline setback deviations. So in other words, they stayed within the setbacks that were previously there.
And if I read the plan correct, you're actually increasing the distance between the structures.
That's correct. As you probably noted, if you walked around the houses that are there now, they're almost connected. They're that close. There's a porch that could really be shared if there was a door out from I think 9 onto that porch. They could actually both be using that porch, although that's not the case. So yes, it increases the distance between the houses. There, as you can see on the plans, there will be, it's expected there would be some screening between the houses, probably in the lines of tall arborvitaes or something along those lines. Nothing in particular has been established, but it would be expected. Again, my client is planning on living there.
Okay. Any questions?
I had just one statement. So basically, we're not increasing the housing inventory. We are increasing the value of each of the units.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win for your client and more so for the town.
Right. It certainly increases the assessed value of the property, so when you put new houses where old bungalows sat. So, yes. And you've separated the property into 2 lots instead of one, which, as you know, Mr. Gordon, also leads to a separate assessment.
Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing, and you will be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
We've got a couple of minutes before our first 6:45 hearing.
Exactly 1 minute.
I'd like us to consider the first 2. I think we have time to do that.
Okay,
Any
sure.
comments, questions?
I guess I have some comments, or one comment. Are we going to just talk about them together?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think number 9, because we're talking about non-conforming structures here, I think we need to at least say some things about that. It was pre-existing non-conforming, and I think even though there are a setback, there's one setback that's still non-conforming. I think they've taken care of, they've become less non-conforming, if you will, everywhere else. And with the new lot lines, 9 was, the existing structure clearly was over the lot line and was going to present all kinds of problems. So I am definitely in favor of 9. And in 9A, the previous structure, the existing structure is smaller than what they're proposing, and it was conforming to the rear setback and now will be non-conforming, but I don't believe it's detrimental at all. I don't think it's substantially detrimental, and I think overall they're taking care of the side setback that was there before. Now that's wider, so I think in general it's, again, less non-conforming than what was
And
what
in
is
general,
there.
an improvement.
An improvement. It is a charming little neighborhood they
It is
have
cute.
down there.
Yes,
It's
it is.
absolutely
It will
charming.
be.
Yep,
Yeah.
even better.
Well, yes. It's like from another era. It's- I think it's going to be a
Very
great
special.
Any other
improvement.
comments?
No. All I can tell you is that I think it's a good thing, and I'm going to vote for it.
Is that a motion?
I would make a motion that the hearing is closed and that we vote.
Second.
Second? All those in favor of approving the 9 Fifth Ave? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. And 9A Fifth Ave?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Rosen.
He took off.
You knew. Fairfax, right?
Okay, yep.
Which brings us to our first 6:45 hearing, which is to hear the appeal of Julia and Edward LeBlanc, 15 Robertson Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 4-B, in the Residence B2 District to allow the construction of a second-floor addition on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling located at 7 Fairfax Street. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 45, Plot 226. Are Julia and Edward LeBlanc here? Come on up.
I'll take that down.
My name is Ed LeBlanc, and this is my daughter Julia. And we purchased the property at 7 Fairfax Street so that she could start a family there. And we need a second floor on it because there's not enough room. It's a relatively small footprint, and we have a front setback problem. We don't meet the requirement set by the town. So we have some architectural drawings that show what the house will look like now. And I have the realtor's photographs, if you haven't got any pictures of it, or if you haven't seen it. This is what it looks like now. It's a relatively small cottage-style house. And what we'd like to do is put a second floor on it, renovate the first floor, and make it a nice little place for her to start her family.
Okay, you're keeping the setbacks, you're just going up?
We're going straight up.
No bay windows, nothing coming out?
There are a couple of roof lines that are, we have a couple of roof lines, a boxed-out window on the side, which has no bearing. The only one is on the front here. We have a little roof to cover over the front stairs, which I believe the architect has that shown at about 2 feet. I don't know if that impacts anything as far as the town's concerned, but that is really the only roof line that's going to have any impact at all. It will project beyond anything that we already have there now.
And your matching siding, whatever's there, you're going to...
Siding's going to go straight up. They decided that they want to keep the siding all the same. There'll be no difference in the siding at all. And everything but the stick wall on the first floor will remain.
What's the square footage of the existing?
It's about 850 square feet, give or take, maybe 900 square feet max.
About 1,600 usable.
Yeah, so we're going to basically double the floor area.
Okay. Any, Mel?
I have no problems at all. I think it's nice.
Yeah.
And you know my feeling about most second stories, they should have been allowed by right. I'm sorry.
You like that thinking?
I was there today. Again, a nice neighborhood. There's half the houses already have second stories, and the others are one floor. This is a true addition. It's not. It's a renovation. You're not going to knock down the home and
No, if we
replace
had
it.
another $30,000 or $40,000, I would take it down
Sure.
and probably put a new foundation under it, but
Sure.
we just don't have that available to us, so this is what we can work with, and this is the best we can do. We got it for a really good price, and we can bring it back to a decent tax value, and hopefully, she'll be here for a while.
That's my plan.
It's
a single
Every
family.
child now costs
Single family.
$53,000 a year for college.
Don't we know it? I got a lot of savings to do that.
Anyone else?
No.
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm all set.
A lot of people here. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Yes, ma'am. Could you just state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Barbara Van Nest, and I live on the adjoining property. I live on the corner at 299 South Prince Sigmund Avenue, on the corner of Fairfax. And I bought that house in 1978, so I've been there for a very long time. When I purchased the house, I was told, actually, I was told at the closing, oh, this property was, the people who lived in the house, they died, their name was Leonard, and I bought the house from them. And they said, when that woman died, when she did, I bought the house, that I was going to give 15 feet of the land belonging to the Howitts, who recently owned the house they now have. And my lawyer never showed up, and I was in court alone, and I said, well, I guess, do I have to do that? And the attorney said, well, why wouldn't you? It's only 15 feet from the foundation to out so that they can park their cars. And I said, okay. Well, since that time, there have been some issues about the land. I have no objection to anyone at all parking their car there, or more than 1 or 2 or 3 cars even. There's plenty of room there for it. But I think, in all fairness, it would be nice to legally know our guidelines.
Mr. Gordon?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect,
Yeah.
that's a private matter between private individuals, and we can't become involved in that, much as we might like to. That's between you and you, and the board can't become involved, and I wish you both the best of luck. Good fences make good neighbors, so talk to each other.
I was told that it would have to be surveyed when they sold the house. I was told that.
That's, again, it's a private matter. It has no bearing on this hearing.
All right, well, it's something we will talk about then. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, there being no further questions, we will take it under advisement, and you will be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Jim, you had a letter from somebody over there that
He's in favor.
was in
No
favor.
objection.
297 South Quinsigamon Ave.
Yes, from neighbor that has no objection to the special permit being requested, 47 Fairfax Road.
Just put it
So
in the
noted.
In the record, now we'll close the hearing.
Okay.
No further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. They'll be
thank you very
notified of our
much.
decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Which brings us to our final 6:45 hearing. It's to hear the appeal of the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, 36 North Quinsigamon Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a comprehensive permit in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Section 20-23, in a Residence B2 district to construct 2 two-family dwellings and 1 single-family dwelling upon property located at 2A, 2B, 4, 6A, 6B Ridgeland Road. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 38 as Plot 97, and I need to recuse myself from this hearing.
Well, thank you very much for, good evening, members of the board. Attorney Joe Jenkins, I represent the Shrewsbury Housing Authority. I'm here tonight with Richard Ricker, the chairman of the Housing Authority, along with our engineer, Ahmad Zreen.
Excuse me,
and-
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes?
Would you allow the chairman to read the notice?
Sure.
Good idea.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
To hear the appeal of Julia and Edward LeBlanc.
Nope.
Nope.
No.
Next one.
Nope.
Last one.
We just did that. All right.
Yep.
To hear the appeal of Shrewsbury Housing Authority, 36 North Quinsigamon Avenue, Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, for a comprehensive permit in accordance with MGL Chapter 40B, Section 20-23, in a Residence B2 district, to construct two-family dwellings and one single-family dwelling upon property located at 2A, 2B, 4, 6A, 6B, Ridgeland Road. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 38 as Plot 97. I'd also like to remind the applicants that we are a four-member board, and that you have the option of being heard tonight and requiring a unanimous approval, or continuing to a further date where we would have a full board available.
We have discussed that, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It is our choice to go forward in light of some pretty strict guidelines that we have with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the funding agency to go forward.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Levin?
I spoke with our appointing authority, and up until 4 months ago, I lived down the street from this property, and he thought it would be a good idea if I just disclosed that I did live on Quinsigamon Ave until 4 months ago, that I have no interest, financial interest or any other interest in anything going on, and that saying that, I should sit.
Right, and you're formerly of walking distance from the premise?
I was.
Right.
Yeah.
No longer.
Okay?
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And we're here tonight with Ahmad Zreen, our architect, as well as Kathy Kang, or our engineer, and Kathy Kang, our architect, who will present some details about the project in a moment. We're here, as you say, under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, and we're trying to develop a parcel that's been undeveloped for a very long time. The Shrewsbury Housing Authority was granted this property from the town of Shrewsbury in 1988, and it's sat vacant for quite some time since then. We propose to put 5 housing units in the 3 buildings situated on the one lot, with a total of 8 bedrooms. The mission and purpose of the Housing Authority is to provide housing opportunities with a preference for Shrewsbury residents that need affordable housing. And they've served in that role admirably for many years in the town of Shrewsbury, creating many units such as Francis Gardens and the Quinsigamon Towers. This project's already approved for a grant by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which has been presented to you in our binder. The waivers that would be required if this were not a 40B project include constructing 3 units on one lot, which normally wouldn't be permitted, a setback of 23 feet rather than the required 50, and to construct on a lot that's between 28 and 29,000 square feet rather than the required 40,000 square feet. Naturally, the Housing Authority would like to use this property to fulfill its role to provide affordable housing in the town of Shrewsbury. I think it's important to note also that approval of this project will allow the town to not be required to approve 40B projects for the next year or 2, depending on the formula, as it works out with the town. So that way you will not be required to approve a project for some time after this one, based on the formula.
How does that formula apply?
It's if I could, Mr. Chairman, Richard Ricker, Chairman of the Shrewsbury Housing Authority. The formula is a 10% formula for affordable housing. It's basically a quota that has been established within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for affordable housing. Until you reach that 10% threshold, you find yourself basically subject to this and other types of 40B requests. Our most recent requests in Shrewsbury have been along the lines of 200 or 300 or 400 apartment requests at a particular time. So My understanding from listening to Mr. Morgado, and I don't know the exact formula that they use, but my understanding from the selectmen's meeting that we attended when we asked for their basic approval and support, which they granted to us, was that for every unit that we put online in a project like this, we get a corresponding number of units offline in terms of the requirement for the quota. So I don't know how many units it is, but it certainly works against that quota on more than a one-to-one basis.
Well, I was understanding that maybe there'd be like a, implied there was maybe a stay of some sort?
Well, when you do a
For a period of time?
40B, when you do a 40B, depending on the size of the project, it allows the town to basically hold off other 40Bs for a period of time, depending on the size of the project. It could be a year, or it could be 2.
Well, that's what I was asking about. Is
It's either 1 or 2 years, depending on a percentage, whether we go up a 0.5%, I think we get 1 year hiatus, and if we go up a full percent towards the goal, it's 2%, or 2
I
years.
can help with this. Under the town's housing production plan, they are right that if we produce a 0.5%, then we're able to hold off for 1 year, and if we produce 1 or 2%, it's 2 years. However, this is only going to produce 5 units out of, we have about 10,000 units in town, so we're only at about 6.1% of our percentage, up to 10%. So I don't believe that this particular project will allow us to hold off on other 40B projects within the next year. The town is currently undergoing a housing production plan update, which should be finished in the next month or two, which will further that. But this will just help us increase our 6.1 percentage. It probably will only bump us up probably to 6.5%. I don't think it's going to bump us up a whole 0.5% or 1%.
So, yeah, so if this were constructed, we wouldn't have the benefit, if you call it a benefit, of a stay for a period of time.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Right, I think I got a different understanding from talking to Mr. Morgado, but I could be mistaken. Wouldn't be the first time. So, in any event, it does count against the...
It counts. I
Yes,
get
it
that. I
does
get
count.
that
We
part.
would have that
I get
on our
that, right.
inventory, and it would count as a percentage.
Well, I would introduce Ahmad Zreen or Kathy Kang to give some details in regard to the
Please.
Okay, so what we've proposed for the site is 3 different structures, 2 duplexes. There'll be 2 duplexes and a single family unit in the middle. The 2 duplexes will be identical, and they will contain a 2-bedroom unit and a 1-bedroom unit, so a total of 3 bedrooms in the whole structure. The middle unit, the middle building will be a 2-bedroom unit on its own. And we tried to design this to keep the scale small, so that it is in keeping with the neighborhood. In terms of parking, we are providing the requisite number of parking that's complies with the zoning ordinance. And again, we're trying to design these as if they were neighborhood homes instead of a complex. So we are providing 3 separate driveways with parking associated with each building. And there'll be some plantings too in front. That's the site plan, and this is the floor plan and a little building elevation. The single unit will be a 1-story sort of cape-like structure, 1 story. There's no second floor. And the duplexes, the 2-bedroom unit will be 2 floors, and the single bedroom unit will be 1 floor. So that's why there's a little step down. 3 of these units will be handicap accessible. All the 1-bedroom half of the duplexes will be handicap accessible, as well as the middle unit, the middle 2-bedroom unit will be fully handicap accessible. They are rather small, modest units. The single family is a little short of 900 square feet total, and these duplexes are just about 1,500 square feet total.
Total, so each half is 750?
two-bedroom is a little under 1,000, and the, I guess it's more like 1,600 because the other one's 660. All right, so it's a little more like 1,600. My math was bad in quick addition. But the idea is to keep them sort of simple and small in scale, in keeping with the neighborhood, and not really, ostentatious. It'll be asphalt shingles and either vinyl siding or a fiber cement siding. Any other features you would like to hear about?
Basement?
Excuse me?
They're on slab.
No basement. It'll be slab on grade. We are proposing to put little sheds in the back of the houses for storage of, lawn mowers and bikes and things like that. Because there will be no garages attached to these homes, because they're very modest for low-income people. And there will be little patios also in the back, so they can enjoy the site. Actually, this is South Consigamond, and Ridgeland is a small neighborhood street off of South Consigamond, and the site sort of falls off on this side, on the back side of the lot, and there's really quite a nice view down that way. So it's all wooded. So we're going to try to keep as much of the existing, do as little site clearing as possible, but obviously there will be some site clearing involved, and then we are going to then come back and put some plantings in.
I'm curious, how did you come to choose to build under a 40B, 5 units? I suspect that it's because that would be most appropriate for the neighborhood, but I shouldn't answer my own question.
Well, I think these units do fall into the character of the neighborhood as best can be, and they also, I think, provide some maximization of the lot without leaving the character of the neighborhood. So the 5 units, I think, is what could be built there in keeping with the neighborhood aesthetics and character.
We had, if I could, Mr. Chairman, we had, again, Richard Ricker, Chairman of the Housing Authority. We had previously discussed various configurations of housing here. In fact, some of the configurations were for more units on this parcel. But we chose to go with this particular type of design in order to keep it more in keeping with the surroundings. The fact is that at one stage we were encouraged to put a multiplex here, which would have had several units, more units, and it would have all been in, at one stage it was one building, then it was 2 buildings. We felt that that was just too much, and if you are, as I'm sure you're all familiar with what the Shrewsbury Housing Authority has around town. We are very, indeed, we're very hard on our properties. We maintain them to a T. We do everything we can to make them continue to look like anybody's residence to the best of our ability. All of our family units around town do have sheds and things like that, so this is not unusual where you don't have basements or garages. But we have been meticulous, I think, in the maintenance of our particular units. We're very proud of the units that the Housing Authority has around town. We have scattered housing throughout town, from Liberty to Parker Road to Holden Street. So all corners of the town have some of our housing. This particular development also, I would point out, is a joint venture with DMH. As part of our overall program, we joined with DMH in order to put together the funding for this particular program. That being said, it is our intention to utilize the handicapped units and the other units, and to also utilize our local preference standards for this property. Also, I would point out that we received this property in 1988 from the town of Shrewsbury. And its stated purpose in the deed from the town and during the hearings for the granting of this and several other properties throughout town to us was for housing purposes. So there's never been any question that eventually, if we got the funding, we would be coming before you and other boards for a request very much like this.
Lisa?
I had a question about parking. I've been here twice now, and today, 2:30, something like that, there were a lot of cars parked on the street right next to the property, and there were cars parked in the lot. So I'm happy, very happy to see the off-street parking being supplied in this plan. I did wonder if 8 is enough. It's 8 bedrooms in all the units, and I know we meet the requirements, but do you feel 8 is enough?
I can tell you that from our experience with other properties,
Housing properties, yeah.
we have never had to expand, except South Street, where we expanded the parking on South Street as a result of utilizing a basic garage area, changing that into a handicapped unit. That required us to expand parking,
The
obviously.
new
for that.
units on South Street, the relatively new?
No, these are older units.
Older
but-
ones.
Old white
Okay,
ones.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know which ones
but
you
back in, Tony, you can help me out here, probably the 90s, right? We rebuilt the property on South Street.
Okay.
And during that process, we did expand the parking.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, 1 second.
I'd just like to recognize that there was some correspondence submitted to the Board of Appeals. There was a memorandum from John Knipe, our Superintendent of Highways, on February 9th. There was a letter from myself and Jack Peralt on February 16th, and then there was a response to comments from the proponent's engineer. So,
Thank you.
was there a copy of the response to comments submitted to the board this evening from the engineer?
I thought
I think I had requested 8 copies for tonight.
I thought 8 copies were delivered to you previous to now.
No, I just received 1 copy. Oh, you passed them? Okay, perfect. We're fine.
From Land Planning and Civil Engineering?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, we have that.
Yeah, we delivered them to the town on Friday, so.
Okay, someone wanted to be heard?
I was just going to,
Please identify yourself,
Tony
please.
Cotero, I'm the vice chair of the Housing Authority. Just to respond to some of the parking that you have now, there is a restaurant across the street
Yeah.
from the land, and the patrons
Patrons.
of that restaurant take, they just park right there, and they take the spaces inside of the property there. That's going to happen while the house is there. But at the present time, we really can't stop them from pulling in. We put a fence there on one of the driveways to stop someone from pulling trucks off there. But that parking that's there now is just someone that said the patrons are satisfying the restaurant, so I don't think you'll find that will happen here. We don't allow our tenants to park out in the street on the present projects, and we won't allow it here.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation part?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Persons that like to be heard on the matter?
Yes, we got Carol McAdams here as one of the neighbors. My name is Jim Carlin. I live across the street from the property.
Yes.
Most of us all here are here to oppose any construction over there. And this young lady has a petition from throughout the area against it. Even though the Housing Authority has owned this property since 1988, it seems that the Housing Authority loves the area down where we live. They built low-income housing down on Holman Street. They did it on Parker Road. They did Elizabeth Street. They did the housing for the elderly on Winston Avenue. But yet, I don't see really any of the houses going anywhere else in this town. There's 24 square miles in this town, and we're getting all the low-income housing for some reason. I don't know what their idea is, but we're just opposed to it. I spoke to one of the gentlemen a year and a half ago who was doing a perk test on the property over there. And when I talked to him, I asked him a few questions, and he was so evasive on the answers, and so back-offish that I was just turned off with talking to him. And it really upset me, because here he is, an elected official, that we pay taxes and we vote to put him in the office, and he can't even give me a straight answer of who was going to come into this area. Now, none of us here, though we're opposed to it, none of us in this room have any objection to having somebody from Shrewsbury that needs affordable housing. We'd love to see them get a house, but we don't want to import them and bring somebody in. As a former police officer, I was down when they built the houses down by Worcester Sand and Gravel, and for the first 6 months, we were down there almost every night because of a complaint. And this is, I don't want to happen on my street. I've been there for 40 years. We're happy down there, we love it, but I'm not happy about the Housing Authority dumping everything in the lake area. There's 24 square miles. As far as them owning the property, that's fine. They already been offered to buy that property from a respectable businessman who will keep it fairly like it is. It is a enormously small piece of property. A small piece of property.
It isn't
for
even a
5
size that you would
houses.
allow a house.
Could you identify yourself, please?
I'm Carol McAdam from 20 Ridgeland Road. It isn't even the size of a property that you would allow a single home to be built on, much less this much. And we're just worried. The traffic, we feel like it's going to bring our houses, the value of our houses down. And it's not a big lot at all. And we feel like that would make more traffic congestion where we are. Ridgeland Road is a very constantly used road. It goes from South Quincy, people to get to Route 9.
I'm very familiar with it.
Needing more traffic like that. We're in a quiet neighborhood, and I have all of the neighbors, we went door to door, and everybody's opposed to it. We feel like if we want to put one house maybe, but not that many houses on that small of a lot for us.
Okay, if you have the papers for us? Thank you.
Are we allowed a copy?
But the other thing, like I was mentioned, they have a respectable businessman that wants to buy the property. We have no objection to that. But he will maintain the property properly. Right now, between the store, the business that he does, and 5 houses going in there is no problem with them parking in their driveway. But where is everybody else going to park?
Mr. Carlin, if you...
Parking on the street, and it's going to be absolutely horrendous.
I think I understand your concern. If I could give the applicants a moment to address some of your concerns.
Well, I would just like to say that the property has been vacant for some 25 years. That's been quite a luxury for the neighbors and a windfall, as apparently they use it a little bit themselves. But perhaps more importantly, the town of Shrewsbury town meeting voted in 1988 to grant us this property with a mission and a purpose in mind, and I think we're quite limited in what that land can be utilized for, and I don't think it can be sold to a business or to any other endeavor. Our grant of this real estate from the town of Shrewsbury is quite direct and focused, and I think we should comply and abide with what the town has voted for that area.
I would also point out, if I could, that there were several other properties all over town that were granted to the Housing Authority at that time, not just in a particular section.
And of those that were granted at that time, are they improved now?
Yes, most of, I think this is the last one that we have not improved. All the other ones are built.
And I think you mentioned you wanted a copy of this.
Yes, if I could.
We can make that available.
For tomorrow, yep, tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Mr. Carlin, are you...
Second of all, with the sale of the property, they can make a 100% profit on the sale of it.
Well, I think they've already addressed that this property has...
The other thing is, this is the first time I've seen what the houses are going to look like. We have had no input from the Housing Authority.
Mr. Carlin, that's why we have the public hearing. So you have this opportunity to see what is going to be built and to have your concerns heard.
And I think the whole neighborhood, we feel like most of us have been there for at least 30 years or more. We're not a neighborhood that moves around a lot. That's our homes. And we really feel like after our investments of 30 years and 35, 40 years, that our property value will go quite down when you have that much homes on a small spot like that. And that's our feelings, and there's more neighbors here that feel the same way. We're not alone.
Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to speak on this matter? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Deborah Crane. I live on 7 Bancroft Avenue, and I've been there for 31 and a half years. And Bancroft Avenue is very small, and it's directly across from this property. And as it is right now with the business, we have tractor trailers going up and down the street daily to get around the Ridgeland Road weight restriction. And I think we're going to have a lot more traffic if there's 5 more units there, as well as I've called Mr. Knight and I've tried to get a speed limit sign on the street, and apparently the town has its limit of street signs.
Well, I don't think we can address speed limit signs tonight,
for
ma'am.
quality of life and for the street, for what's going to go on the street. There's no crosswalks. There's a lot of issues there. That's a tiny, tiny piece of property. I couldn't even see putting a duplex on it. I think if you measure it out, I mean, I understand that they're asking for a variance, but with the frontage and with the depth, I mean, I don't even think you can put a duplex on that property.
We need to talk about how we don't need
Thank you. Yes?
If I may comment.
Please.
Although we don't meet the front setback requirements in the current zoning ordinance, this is actually quite in keeping with the other houses in the neighborhood. The houses down the street are set very close to the street. In fact, probably closer than these houses are. And even though the lot is quite shallow in depth, the lot, as I said, the land drops off significantly in the back and is not buildable. It doesn't belong to us either, but it's not buildable. So there's, even though it is a shallow lot, it really has the appearance of being quite a big lot because there's no neighbors nearby at all. There's neighbors on Quinsigamond, but no really visible neighbors back here at all. So even though it is technically a small lot, it does not have the appearance of a small lot, and it never will. And also the houses are very in keeping with the setbacks of the rest of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
May I respond to that?
One second. Backing up a second. Mr. Ricker, I think you mentioned that there was a specific purpose for this property when it was granted to the town?
Yes. The deed from the Board of Selectmen recognized that it is necessary for the public convenience to facilitate the construction of said dwelling units for the elderly, physical handicapped on town-donated land.
And this was in 1978?
1988.
88,
yes.
Pardon me. So the decision as to its use was made by the town in 1988?
Oh, clearly. We were in front of the town meeting. We were in front of the Board of Selectmen before that. I believe we went to the planning board before the town meeting. All of these properties were advertised at that time because of the nature of the proceeding in order to get the town meeting to approve the transfer to the Housing Authority.
Okay. Other persons had questions, comments?
My name is Phyllis Panarelli. I live right next to that property. I will lose all my privacy if they put that there.
Like she was saying, the lot
Right in the
One at a time, please.
I live right on 87 South Quinsigamond Ave, right at the corner there.
How will you lose your privacy?
Their backyard will be right in my bedroom window.
And as she said, when she said the houses in the neighborhood have that size of a lot, yes, we do. Our lots are not huge by any means.
but there is one house on that lot, not
Well, you know,
four and five.
in fairness, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the Shrewsbury Housing Authority has the right to build on this property. And I think your objections, although appreciated, I think would be better placed if we kept the discussions more to the style of property that is being built. And I think that the Housing Authority has, at least in my opinion, selected a style of housing that is very much in keeping with the neighborhood and not an obtrusive kind of construction.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Gordon.
Do you think that it would be beneficial for either the attorney or Kristen to explain to the neighbors what 40B is?
I think that would be beneficial. Kristen, are you going to volunteer, or Mr.
Sure,
Ricker?
I've been volunteered, yes.
Okay.
She's the expert.
Okay. Ms. Wilson?
Sure. Chapter 40B was a law put in by the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts to create affordable housing throughout the Commonwealth, and fairly created in every municipality, 351 municipalities in the town. The town of Shrewsbury currently has 6.1% affordable housing, and if we had over 10%, then we could reject a 40B complex. What 40B is particular housing that has is for people who make under 80% the median income in the town. So it is through the 40B process, the applicant goes before the Zoning Board of Appeals and can bypass local regulations in order to accommodate affordable housing within the town to make that percentage of housing units up to 10%. So right now we're hearing this application for 5 units that would be all affordable units that would count towards our 10%, and we're hearing some waivers. We're not hearing any variances. Waivers requested from the zoning bylaw that the board can grant. When we take a vote, if it's tonight or if it's at the next hearing, we would vote on those waivers individually to make sure that the board was comfortable with them, and then vote on the comprehensive permit as a whole. And then if the comprehensive permit is granted, it can be granted with conditions or without conditions. And then if it is granted with or without conditions, the applicant can move forward. If it's denied, the applicant could appeal that process to the Housing Authority, to the HAC, which is the State Housing Commission.
What is most likely to happen in that case?
It would go through a court proceeding, but we're going to hear this tonight and see what happens.
Okay. Mr. Carlin?
Yes. One thing that the Housing Authority failed to mention was the fact that this property was also looked at for a fire station, for the Lake Fire Station. The property was rejected because it was too small, even for a one-truck fire station. And now you want to put 5 houses there. Second of all the residents here, like I said from the beginning, are not opposed to low-income housing or affordable housing and put these people in the housing. But there's 24 square miles in the town of Shrewsbury. You're telling me that there's not an acre of land anywhere in this town but in the lake area where everything else is? Parker Road, 36 North Quincy Avenue, Elizabeth Street, Holden Street. Come on now. I mean, let's spread it around. I'm sure these people would love to have these brand-new houses in their neighborhood, the same as we would, or what you're telling us we would. And this is the whole thing. We're opposed to the whole thing. Not because of the low income, because of the housing. We want it spread evenly and fairly around the town.
And we don't feel it is. We feel like if the 40B, they say you have so many low-income housing and affordable housing in the town. Why is it all on our side? How much of that is in the center of town?
I hear you. I understand. Yes.
If I could, the town actually does have affordable housing spread throughout. The Avalon Bay property on Route 20 has affordable housing.
None of
The
it's in the center.
Excuse me. The Madison Place property on Route 9 that was just constructed has affordable housing. There's affordable housing on Lake Street. There's affordable housing on South Street, and maybe some other areas that I'm not pertinent to right now. So I believe that it is equally spread throughout the 4 quadrants of the town of Shrewsbury.
In the center of town is affordable housing.
Francis Ave and Holden Street.
Francis Ave.
Francis Ave, that's a senior area.
And Holden.
I would like to
Center
say, I live within
Excuse me.
walking distance of Francis Gardens and the housing on South Street, and it hasn't affected me.
It lowered the value of your house?
No, no.
Other members would like to be heard? Yes, ma'am, again. Identify yourself again, please.
I'm Deborah Crane. I just wanted to address the point that was brought up about the lots in the neighborhood. The lots, original lots were 5,000 square feet, and many of the homes do have 5,000 square foot lots, so they are close to the road. My home included, because the road was widened, so my front yard is gone. But I have 2 lots, actually 2 adjoining lots, and I cannot, which is all right with me, build on the lot between my house and my neighbor's house, which is 5,000 square feet, because there is not enough room. Now, I don't want to, and that's fine, but I don't think if I can't build on my own 5,000 square feet, how many square feet is that piece of property?
It's 28,500.
Thank you.
How much is it?
28,500.
Because across the street from me, there's also they're on Bancroft Avenue, but they're actually part of lots that belong to homes on South Quinsigamon Avenue. And they were originally zoned as the 5,000 square lots. They can't build on those.
I understand.
Zoning changes.
Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter?
I have some questions, if I may.
Mr. Gordon?
Are you building sidewalks?
Yes.
What is the width of the sidewalks?
It's actually 5 feet. Currently, for the record, my name is Imad Zurain from the Bella Zurain Civil Engineer. Currently, the sidewalk terminates right almost at the beginning of the property. We're extending it to the end of the property.
It's going to be 5 feet. Does that include the grass plot, or is there no grass plot?
There is grass plot behind it.
Behind it.
But no, it doesn't include it.
Okay. And is this going to be curbing bituminous or cement?
We're closing a couple curb cuts.
No, I'm talking about the curbs.
Bituminous.
Bituminous?
Yes.
Okay. All right, because one of the things that you should consider is, it's a public street, so people park on it. Bituminous, if they park on a bituminous berm and it's hot, you're going to be replacing quite often. Whereas if you thought about, and I don't know what the additional expense is, sloped granite or sloped cement, you might get more life out of it. You've got adequate parking for all the people there, and on the street there would be parking for, and you say you won't allow it, but you'll find over time it'll be used for people from the restaurant. Okay? The people that will not get parking probably are the people that park overnight on the town land. There's 3 or 4 cars that park there every night. Those people will have to find another parking space either on, well, we don't allow parking overnight on the street.
Anyway.
I don't believe.
No.
But they will have to park
Somewhere else.
somewhere else. Nobody wants change in their neighborhood. In fact, the big saying that architects and engineers have is not in my backyard. And I can understand that. I don't want anybody moving anything new into my backyard, but it's the right. And if we don't approve it, I guarantee you that HAC will come in and say, you can't participate in this anymore. We're putting it in without your participation. My suggestion to all of us is, find a way to make this as palatable to you as you can, and forget about it not happening, because it's going to happen. And, you know, if I'm making you unhappy, I'm sorry, but that's really the way it is. In fact, you go to a 40B conference, and it's incestuous. All the engineers, all the lawyers, and everything, that's all they do. And they're smarter than us. But I think this is, and we're going to have some more discussion, but I think this is a good use for the land. I'm sorry that people will lose some of their privacy. But for all the years that I did live in that neighborhood, the only thing I saw was benefit for someone else. And now the housing authority, which owns it, wants to get the benefit of their land. And the way it is now, unless you tell me something different, I'm going to vote for it with conditions. Sorry.
Excuse me, sir, but wasn't the key word there, you used to live there?
Yeah.
And not that you do live there?
No, but I live in
We live here.
I still live in Shrewsbury.
This is our place for 30, 40 years.
I understand that.
And you don't live there, fine, you're for it, I understand, all right?
I was for it when I lived there.
Build the houses, we're saying build them somewhere else because there's 24 square miles out there.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but you and I are both out of place saying it right now. The chairman didn't recognize you.
No one feels that that lot is too small for that amount of houses?
I understand the concerns about the size of the lot, and I understand the concerns that have been expressed, but as Mr. Gordon said, it's not whether it's going to get built or not, it's what it's going to look like when it does get built. That's really what we're talking about here. Mr. Ricker,
If I could, again, Richard Ricker. Mr. Gordon, your comments are appropriately laid on our doorstep as far as the curbing goes. I would note to you that we are dealing with funding sources that are very strict and very tight, hence the size of the units and the size of the interior of the units. But we will go back and we will, I can assure you, we will go back and we will ask for that.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on the matter? Yes.
Are they going to put any
Your name again, please?
Phyllis Panarelli.
Thank you.
Are they going to be putting any fences along the back part of it?
We weren't planning on any fences, no.
What was that?
We were not planning on any fences at this point. Are you on this property here?
Yeah.
Because we actually do meet the rear setbacks, don't we? Yeah. So we actually meet the setback requirement, so if anybody built anything here, it would, unfortunately, and we have tried very hard to keep the houses as far this way and away from the corner as possible for a number of reasons. Like I said, the lot is wooded, and we'd like to keep most of that as much as possible to screen up the view of the houses from both your property and from Quinsigamond, South
Can I ask
Quinsigamond.
for a fence?
If I could just finish.
One at a time, please.
So that effort has been made so that there's this house that's closest to Quinsigamond is pushed as far away from Quinsigamond as possible. So we are trying to be as sensitive as possible to the neighbors. And
Can I ask for a fence?
Excuse me?
you can ask for a fence.
Could I
Yes.
ask for a fence?
You just did.
Well, something to divide.
Fences?
You know, it doesn't have
Will
to
you
be
consider
a
fencing?
I can tell you that we can ask for anything. I think it's probably more likely from our standpoint and probably more reasonable dealing with the funding source to maybe ask for some plantings to the rear of the property rather than solid fencing. Solid fencing is an item that will run up the cost fairly well, and I think that with the distance to the neighbor, I think that plantings might be more appropriate even.
Yeah.
The other thing is that with fencing, we would have to clear more land in order to get the fence in on the property. So rather than clearing more land, it might, some sort of adding to the existing plantings might be.
And I can tell you that we, again, as I stated with the curbing, we will ask for the funding to allow us to do some plantings back there. I don't know what we're going to be able to get, but we'll ask for it.
Well, I did walk the property, and that area that we're talking about is filled with trees right now, and you're probably not going to touch that. That provides a lot of privacy as is. If you clear it and put plantings in, you're going to not have privacy as they grow.
Well,
So
that's true, because any plantings,
yeah.
if I could, Mr. Chairman, because any plantings would necessarily be planted to the rear of the lawn.
Right.
Yes,
a lot of
sir.
privacy
If
now.
I may add something else, again, for the record, my name is Imad Zurain. There does exist currently a natural ridge pretty close to the property line, so the ground does slope down toward Ridgeland Road this way and then down from the property this way. So somebody in this area here won't be seeing the entire house because there's some kind of a natural ridge. By adding a little bit of landscaping, we'll probably actually screen the entire house because you'll only be seeing the top of the house.
Thank you.
As the land kind of drops off on both sides.
Could I ask you, would you address drainage?
With regard to drainage, the site is, the underground subsoil is fairly good draining material, all sand and gravel. So we're providing for each unit leaching basins. We're collecting all the roof runoff and directing it into leaching to recharge the ground, basically.
And am I correct, the town of Shrewsbury Engineering Department is overlooking all of that, has seen those plans?
We've gotten some comments, and they've actually seen the drainage, and they had no objection to the proposal.
I may be speaking out of turn, but I think that we're in basic agreement on all the points with the engineering department, with planning.
Yes, we did review, on behalf of the engineering department, we did review the drainage, the landscaping, the curb cuts, the roof runoff, the parking spaces, and we did receive a comment letter back. So what I would be expecting is that we'd have a revised plan set addressing our comments that were addressed in the comment letter from the applicant as a condition of the approval, if you so desire to approve that, or submitted beforehand if you so desire that as well. But it has been reviewed by the conservation agent, the town engineer, myself, the building inspector, the highway superintendent.
Thank you.
Can you clarify how many people can live in each unit?
I believe it's a requirement of the DMH grant. You could correct me if I'm wrong, or Kathy, you might have a comment on that.
Well, you mean beyond the one bedroom, two bedroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, the single bedroom DMH units will be just one person, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the family units,
It's two bedrooms, so.
Two bedrooms.
There's no requirement for...
Well, there's a state code as to how many people can live within a certain space. And I believe that those units are so small that you would be limited to maybe 3 people.
The bedrooms are not very big.
And the unit overall size it's just barely a 2-bedroom. So.
Can a king-size bed fit in one of these bedrooms? No.
No.
I'm trying to picture how big they'll be.
No.
Well, let's see.
These units get
bedrooms are-
smaller all the time.
In a two-bedroom unit, the master bedroom is 148 square feet.
What's the dimensions on that?
And the small bedroom is 125.
Dimensions on the master?
Dimensions on there?
So that means 125. that's
10 by 12.
10 by 12 and
And a half.
Yeah.
It won't take a queen size.
And that's the master.
No, that's the small bedroom. The other one's 148.
Oh,
so-
148.
10 by
10
14.
There we go.
Right.
Queen-size bed. And
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Yes, ma'am?
My name's Mary Hatch, and I live on Ridgeland Road. I too am opposed to this. I've heard everything that everyone's saying tonight, and ultimately, I feel that we've been lectured at this point, that we don't have any kind of, option with this whatsoever, that it's a fait accompli. So, from my perspective, I actually think it's a sad state of affairs that you can put something on a public hearing when the public has nothing to say.
Well, I think that speaks to, again, to the issue of 40B, and if I could ask Kristen to elaborate a little bit more on really what does a 40B mean to the people that came here to be heard.
Sure. Well, I think we have listened to what the I'm sorry, I can't say that I have listened to you, but the board will ultimately make the decision. I provide my professional expertise on this. We heard that screening might be necessary, so the applicant has said we might go back and look at landscaping or fencing, so that was certainly heard. With this 40B proposal, obviously they are trying to abide by the zoning bylaw to their best of ability, but their main priority is to provide affordable housing that complies to the 40B regulations. So they're really only requesting 3 waivers from that zoning requirement. You're here, you've expressed your concerns about lot size, expressed your concern about traffic, screening, privacy, and I think the board and the applicant have listened to your comments and concerns, and if you have any more, we'll stay here as long as we need to discuss those and hopefully come to a consensus about this project. You've heard that the town meeting did approve to transfer this property from the town of Shrewsbury to the Housing Authority for housing units, and you also heard that there are other housing units within the town that are affordable, and no one likes change, obviously. We want to listen to your concerns and questions, but the property was slated for housing development at that time.
So I have one more thing to say. It's Mary Hatch.
Yes.
So while the town was given this particular land to do this purpose with, and it was voted that way in 1988, I also know that votes can be changed. So that argument really doesn't hold a lot of credibility with me.
And we all feel like now, especially with
For the record, your name again, please?
Again, especially with what we're saying and you listening to us, we actually feel at this point that it doesn't matter what we say, because you've already decided that that's going to be approved and that's going there, and that we have no say. Is that correct?
Well,
That's
one,
what
we have not decided.
Not that I-
No, not yet.
And two, the 40B matter is a challenging matter for all communities that have less than 10% affordable housing. And that's a law we need to comply with. And, you know, we may vote, however we vote for it, that doesn't mean we like it or dislike it. That's really, we don't vote based on our feelings of whether we like it or not. Mr. Carlin, yes?
Yeah, Jim Carlin, again, from Seabridge Road. What you're saying doesn't make sense. The gentleman on the end already said he's voting for it. And you're telling me you're not voting for it right now. You're taking it under advisement. He doesn't live in the area anymore, and he's all for it. And yet you're sitting there giving me this double talk about, well, we haven't decided yet, we have to, you know...
Hold on. This is not double talk. I have not voted yet. Mr. Gordon has expressed his opinion and his intent to vote. That's all that's happened. Am I correct?
Yes.
Correct. Another gentleman in the back, yes.
My name's David Lammy, 11 Richland Road. I live right across the street from my lot. It's very quiet. If there's houses put in there, there's going to be a lot of noise, and our walls are thin. How do we know these people won't be up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning making noise?
Well, Mr. Ricker?
If I could just address a couple of things that have been brought up. I know that the Housing Authority, when we meet, and those are televised meetings, I know that they bore some people, and that, you know, sometimes I've been accused of putting people to sleep. But we've been talking about this project at our meetings since 1997, when we got our original grant. Every single meeting for probably 3 years thereafter, Catherine Scavone was on our board, who lived on Tatum Road. She would question every single meeting. Where are we with this? How come we're not building it? Well, we came before the selectmen back in 1997, 98, after we got our initial grant approval. And the selectmen at that time held a public hearing, and they voted to support our request for a building on this site. We actually also went to the Conservation Commission at a public meeting, which was advertised and, I believe, noticed to abutters. I'm not sure what the year was of that, Kathy, but to determine whether there was a wetlands applicability issue on this lot. That was determined by the Conservation Commission back in the late 90s not to be a problem for us. This has not been something we've been hiding. This is something that we have been discussing regularly at our meetings. Tony and I have been on the board, and we've been talking about Ridgeland Road for a long time, since 1997 at least, because we applied for the grant before that. The only reason this hasn't been built to date is because the grant got pulled from us for a period of time because of fiscal restraints within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And as a result, it was pulled back, it was postponed and delayed. We were notified this past June that the release had been gotten, that our grant was now in the hopper, so to speak, so that we could use it, much like school building projects. We were in a waiting line, we were in a queue in order to wait for our funds to get this project done. This has not been a project that has been out of the public view. We have been on television. Almost every one of our meetings is televised. And again, I know they're boring, but you know, frankly, we have been discussing this in public for quite a long time.
Mr. Ricker, if I may ask you, the questions before this board tonight are those of waivers, correct?
Correct.
If those waivers were denied, what would be the result of that denial? Most likely result?
In all likelihood, we would probably seek relief from DHCD and the Housing Appeals Committee. Because, frankly, we think that this project is a good project. And I know that the neighbors, now I know that some of the neighbors are opposed to it. And I feel bad about that. But as Kaffe pointed out, there's an awful lot of lots in this area that have houses on 5,000 square foot lots. If you were to divide this up, that's a better division of property.
It's a bigger lot.
And they're bigger lots if we were to draw lines down them. And again, we do have houses throughout the town. We maintain them meticulously. I'm sorry that some people don't want to see it in their neighborhood.
Other questions? Yes, sir?
Tim Farland again. First of all, there's other properties on this area that are smaller than 5,000. He's correct. My house alone was built in 1919. The house down the street, Jubert's, is older than my house. Of course their property's going to be smaller because they didn't have those restrictions back then. But now we do. And these 5 houses are too big to be put in that small space. Second of all, Mr. Ricker mentioned that he's had all these meetings since 1988 and everything else. Somehow the mail has failed to come to my door or anybody else's here, of notices saying, hey, we're talking about you, do you want to join us, or anything like this. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Ricker says, oh, until tonight, I didn't know they were against it. I mean, wait a minute. What happened to this guy I talked to from the Housing Authority a year and a half ago and wouldn't give me a straight answer? He kept backing away because he didn't want to talk to me.
Well, I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that matter.
I think we can speak to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that actually, a year and a half ago, we had some test pits done. They were not, the operator of the machinery and a consultant of mine was there to look at the soil. It was not Housing Authority staff. Actually, the machine operator could have been Housing Authority staff, but he really knew nothing about the project and was not authorized to speak about the project. He was there to operate the backhoe. And then there was my consulting engineer who was looking at the soil. There was nobody from the town there. It was not a town. That's the only time I know that there were tests done on the property, and there were soils tests that were done that I arranged. So I'm sorry you were offended, but there really wasn't anybody there who knew about the project who could speak about it.
Mr. Carlin, I'll recognize, if you're going to, please do not repeat. Mr. Carlin, wait a minute.
22 years he was secure.
If you're not going to repeat yourself, I'll welcome further comments, okay?
I just wanted to answer her question. She said that I might have talked to the backhoe operator or somebody. I did not. I talked to somebody who identified himself as the housing authority. It was not the help, it was not the backhoe operator or anything else. And he backed off when I started asking him a question. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to give me a straight answer or anything. And that upset me.
I can appreciate that.
If I may, I just might mention that the Housing Authority has no record of Mr. Carlin ever contacting him, even after this event, where his curiosity evidently was aroused, and he wanted to know what was happening there. The proper channel would have been to contact the Housing Authority, but evidently no contact was received from Mr. Carlin.
Yes, ma'am.
Deborah Crane, I didn't understand the answer that was given when you said if the waivers don't go through or what else would
Mr.
happen.
Ricker, could you
I
repeat?
didn't understand, there were some letters and stuff in there, I'm sure you guys are familiar with, but I didn't understand the answer.
I understand your question. Mr. Ricker, could you repeat your response, please?
I said in all likelihood, the matter would be appealed to the DHCD and the Housing...
Would you tell her what
What that
DHCD
means.
is?
The Department of Housing and Community Developments, which basically is the funding agency and the governing agency for housing authorities throughout the state. The Housing Appeals Committee sits in Boston, and whatever happens here, if there was a disagreement either way, would end up in front of the Housing Appeals Committee in Boston.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you, Carol, again, I guess, is there anything that as a group that we can do to either prevent or change what's being built there? Is there anything like as a group that we can do to change the way they're going to build on there? It just seems like, to us, I think, not everybody's saying to each other, we don't mind something being built there, but we feel that that's a lot of homes in a small area. Is there anything we can do to change it? We're not saying don't build on it. Is there anything we can do to make it agreeable to everybody concerned?
Well, do you have a suggestion to make the plan that's being presented more agreeable to you?
Well, I mean, this is my first night here, and like Mr. Ricker said, it's been on TV. Some of us work a few jobs and don't...
I understand, but in terms of this matter, this is my first time seeing it as well.
You know, something could be presented to us as a group, saying maybe, you know what, that might make it a little easier for us to swallow this.
I don't have an answer for you.
It just seems like it's too much and it's a small spot for us.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, Lisa.
I feel for you on that one. It's a lot to digest, and as Mel said, change is really difficult. I think you all have done something by coming here tonight, and I have heard, this board has heard all of your concerns, and there are some that are within the law that we can consider. You mentioned the parking, the traffic, the lot size, you feel it's too small for this amount of structures. All of those things we can take into consideration because within the law we're allowed to do that. And we will do that. Mel might have, at that point in the hearing, have had his decision made, but he may not after we have discussion. None of us have decided. Pardon?
That's what we feel. We feel like we are here, giving you our opportunity.
And you are.
And
That's
somebody else,
what,
yeah, okay, sure,
right.
and we'll change it, and then nothing's going to be,
Well,
that's how we feel. You know, that's how
I understand.
Well,
I understand, and this is the process where you're able to come before us and voice your concerns. And what Dale has said, too, is another way to look at it is if we as a town have little control over this happening, what as a community is within our control to make this more palatable for everyone. So this is your opportunity to tell us, and I've heard some things already. Privacy was an issue, possible fence, something. I want to make it clear to everyone that you've all lived there for so long, so maybe you don't have the same experience that some of us have had when we've moved and we buy a property and there's nothing behind us, and then 10 years down the road there's a price chopper. That land, when you bought, I know you lived there for a long time, but when there's land available to be bought, We have no control over that. It's within the law. That lot has been bought by the town. The town agreed to buy it for a specific use even, not just zoning, but this is really specific. And we're following what we agreed on in 1988, and the state is allowed to do this to us. We can decide to keep control of this as much as we can and keep the decision within the ZBA here, or we can let it go to the state and they're going to build whatever they want. So this is our chance to do it right. So I know I've heard a lot of your concerns. If you can think of any more, then we'll consider it. It's within the law and we can do that. Yep.
Is it within the zoning? Is it zoned for that type of?
I'm sorry, should I answer?
Yeah, this is zoned as a
Waivers.
single-family residential.
And we're here hearing waivers. We're being presented with waivers within our zoning that we need to decide are palatable. And I know where I stand right now. We're going to have more discussion, and my fellow members might change my view on some things. You've certainly changed my view on some things, and here's your opportunity to do some more if you want.
Anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
David Laramie, I live across the street.
Say the name again, please.
David Laramie. I know that this low-income housing, everybody thinks that a lot of people who are into crime and stuff. That's true. Won't there be a lot of police there with making a lot of lights there to come out windows and stuff?
I can address that.
Mr. Ricker.
I could too.
I've been on the Housing Authority for quite some time, and we have, as we stated, a number of these scattered housing units around town. Yes, Mr. Carlin is right that we had a early period down on Holden Street with one particular house where we had one particular tenant that caused us some serious angst. And yes, the police were called down to that one of the several units down on Holden Street. I would point out to you that we do not tolerate that kind of problem in our housing in Shrewsbury. We are very strict in that regard. If there is a problem, if there's criminal activity, anything of that nature, we evict, and when we do not hesitate to do that. We do everything within the law and within our power to make sure that these units comport to the standards of our neighborhoods. These are residents. These are not criminals. These are people that meet the guidelines of 80% of the median income or below. So some of these people that qualify for some of these units could work for the town. It's ridiculous, I'm sorry, to say that you'll be faced with crime if we put some of our family units and handicap units in any neighborhood in this town. It just doesn't happen.
Could you give us an idea of what the income level would be at 80%?
Yeah. Was it part of the application?
I think it is.
Yeah. Just for a background, 80% of median in the town of Shrewsbury could be a teacher at one of the schools. It could be a fireman, a police officer on the lower ranks. It could be a manager at one of the local drugstores. So there's a very common misconception when you hear affordable housing. You think crime, drug dealers, trouble. But really, it could be your niece or nephew that's just out of college starting out. It could be your mother or father that is on a retirement income right now. So really, we need to think about this not as crime, drugs, issues. This is just for lower income people who may not have the privilege that you have with your higher income job, or you might actually yourself be eligible for this program and you might not know it. So we're going to try to find the number.
I don't have it. It's not in the application.
It's not in the application.
Could you also give us an idea of how what the application process is to be considered for this housing option?
Sure. We have a list, every time we have units come online, of course, we get an additional number of people that will apply because they hear about it. But we carry these lists. If you look at our website, you will know that the lists are public, and we've taken great strides in the last 20-plus years to make our authority and the waiting lists much more transparent. People can follow themselves on the list in a public manner now, in a public fashion. We do exercise, however, and although, yes, we do get applicants from outside of town as well as in town, we do freely exercise our ability to have local preference. And with that in mind, we do go above and beyond in order to basically put local folks in these units. Now, we get complaints because of that, because of people that their kids moved out of town, and now they want to move back in, can't afford it, and geez, they're local Shrewsbury residents, how come they can't have a unit? Well, they can't. Again, we stick by the local preference rule, which is that if you live or work in the town of Shrewsbury, then you get a preference on our list.
Mary Beth, I do have those numbers, Chair, if I could go through.
Yes, please, Kristen.
For a household size of 1, this might be different for the DMH units, for the handicap units, but for the general units, for a household size of 1, you must make $40,000 or less. A household size of 2, $45,900 or less, and 3, $51,600. These numbers may be a little bit up or down, so give or take a few $1,000s there.
But as you can see, that encompasses quite a population, and even within the town of Shrewsbury.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Adam, I have a question. A few times in the last half hour, Mr. Ricker has mentioned the handicap section of having for this for housing, and as you said, the cost per what income is, except for the handicap. So what is it? What are you talking about? I mean, what kind of handicaps? Is there anybody, if they have a handicap, no matter what they make? Well, I mean, explain that to us, because this has been mentioned more than once, and we've heard that before, that, so explain to us what you're talking about and what you're thinking of putting in there.
Katie, I think you can address that.
No, actually, to get a handicap unit, you need to be disabled, but also low income. I mean, it's not like any handicapped person can get one of these units. You still need to meet the income requirements. That's correct, right? I think what Kristen was saying, Ms. Wilson was saying, was that what we do have is 2 DMH units, the Department of Mental Health units. Okay, so these are going to be owned by the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, and there will be a vendor agency that provides services to the residents in those 2 units. So they are targeted for people who are clients of DMH who are highly independent, because they will not be staffed, but they will have services provided to them in-house, in-home. There'll be people coming in to help them with things, to help them, I don't know, budget, to help them, clean their house, or whatever it is that they need help with. So there are 2 units that are for handicapped DMH units, and there's 1 family unit that's handicapped. So it should not be confused. Handicapped and DMH are 2 different things.
Okay. But what you're saying is a mental handicap. A mental handicap. Do you mean by mental handicap it could be somebody who is not capable of knowing right from wrong? That could do. I mean,
no,
is that what you're talking anybody with?
No, as I said, I'm not a DMH provider, obviously, but these units are designed for very independent DMH people who receive services from DMH or a DMH provider. So unlike a group home, which you actually have on Lake Street.
We have 3 of them.
Yeah. We have, the Shrewsbury Housing Authority has 3 group homes on Lake Street. those are for people who are severely handicapped, mentally handicapped. And those units have staff there 24 hours a day, okay? So these units are for people who are pretty much very independent. They go to work, and they're not all there all day. They go to work, or they go to some kind of program, and they come home, but they need some assistance, help managing their affairs, or maybe some, I don't know, planning their meals, whatever it is, shopping, they might need some help. So there will be a provider that will service them, that will come in. I don't know how often, whether it's once a day, once a week, I don't know, but we'll help them with those things that they need help with.
So
but they
actually,
will
this
be
is
very independent. So
in a group
do they know
home.
right from wrong? My guess is yes.
So in a group home, if somebody does something wrong or they get violent or whatever, there's somebody there to
These
stare
will
them
not
and
be
watch them.
violent people.
But we won't have that protection.
But these will not be violent people. They do not let violent people live independently. These are very high functioning, people. High functioning.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I just want to thank Mr. Ricker for confirming what I was saying earlier about the people that moved in down on Holmes Street. And since he didn't bring up the other places, I won't either. But I would like to show my respect to the young lady in the corner there and this young lady, of what they were saying. Absolutely, the people move in here, the majority of them are going to be great and wonderful people. And I can see myself being very good friends with them in the future. However, there's also an element of people out there that are going to give him a snow job, and this gentleman here a snow job, and they're going to move in here. But fortunately, Mr. Ricker doesn't have to live next door to him. All of us do.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We will conclude the hearing, and you will be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that had comments on this matter, I thank you very much, and I want you to know that we will consider your remarks.
Good job. Good job. Glad to be back. Comes under the category of no good deed goes unpunished.
Forgot to mention Mara Ford Maloney did a lot of more of the work than I did. I forgot to introduce her. So
I know, I noticed that. You didn't introduce her.
We still have a meeting, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could take it outside, if you could take your discussion outside, we still have a meeting to conduct here.
Mr. Rosen, would you like to resume with
Fairfax Street.
the Fairfax Street matter?
Absolutely. Is there any discussion at all that is necessary on
Sorry.
Fairfax Street? Did you guys decide on Fifth
We
Avenue?
did.
Okay.
Let me go back to Fairfax.
Fairfax is the
Fairfax
second
is the
edition on
second-story addition, non-conforming, pre-existing, straight up.
Seems very reasonable to me.
Yep, they're not becoming more non-conforming.
No, they're not, which is why it's a
Making the
special
neighborhood a
problem.
better place to live.
That's a problem being resolved between the neighbors, not us.
I hope she understands how to do that, but that's great. We have another neighbor who is in support or has no objection.
I move to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
We have not signed any documents, so
Oh, well, I will start passing you
caught up.
Fifth Avenue.
I need coffee. I have a major headache.
Oh my gosh, my throat is
You're drunk. Excuse me.
Have some coffee.
I got it.
No water. I should have brought water.
This is
Decide
9
to-
Fifth Avenue.
Move forward with discussing the amendments at the 7 o'clock hearing, or our decision on Ridgeland Road, whatever the board so desires, after you sign these.
I'm sorry, the amendments on...
There's
I don't have my
just two
agenda.
more items, but I can wait until everybody's done until we go forward.
I'd love to do the two other items to get them off the docket. That's my vote.
Which two?
The
Well, we have
amendments.
Discussing the amendments to the
Oh,
zoning
to the
bylaw.
zoning
rules and-
bylaw. Okay.
Zoning Board of
Yep,
Appeals rules
yep.
and regulations.
I gotta make, is there more than one in this? No.
There's one in
Yeah.
each.
One in each.
I think we're running behind, a little behind schedule.
And the rules and regulations, with the one change that you made, I have no problem with it. And that was that instead of the manager being in the loop, the selectmen are in the loop.
Selectmen appoint the
Because the
ZBA.
selectmen appoint us.
And I just wanted to let the board know that I did send our draft zoning Board of Appeals rules and regulations to Phil Leader, our town council. He's read through them. He doesn't have any issues with the proposed. I know that that was a request of the board at the
Right.
last meeting.
You got a quick answer.
And I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did look at the changes, and I was fine with all of those.
I have no issues with them at all.
I have no idea. You going to print them up for us?
I will after we sign off.
Did you receive any comments from
I haven't
anyone in
received any
town?
comments. We posted them on the website. We said at the meetings that we were doing that. I think we even said something at the planning board meeting. So I just asked that because Lisa didn't sign the Mullins rule, that we only have the 4 members who were actually sitting on that meeting sign the decision to accept the amendments, if that's okay.
Yep. So we can vote to approve. Can I get a motion?
Let's close the hearing. We should
Oh.
close the hearing first because it was a public notice
That's true.
hearing.
I move to close the hearing on our zoning procedures.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Why don't we
Now we should vote to
make a motion to approve that
Okay.
before we go back to Ridgeland Road?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Kristen, you did good work.
Well, actually, let's do new business and old business, and then I can
Leave.
Right.
I don't have anything listed for new or old business.
Anyone up here? Anyone have any issues, new business or old business?
No.
And if you have any suggestions for the next meeting, we don't have any new applications yet, but the deadline is this Friday, correct? So we'll advise you if we'll have a March meeting
Okay.
after this Friday.
It would not upset me greatly if we didn't.
I understand.
Could work out well
Isn't
for
this
you.
where you start
Yes, it is.
with a little
Falling
extra?
inside.
Started yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so no correspondence either, I believe. Okay, so I leave
Thank you.
this in your capable hands.
Thank you.
Open this discussion.
Ridgeland Road.
Yes.
Can we just talk about the response from Jack Pearl on the application?
Sure.
Because I don't think we really, did we address that earlier? That we got a response from?
Yes.
I did
Okay.
state
you did.
that.
Kristen
And
talked
they are
about it.
going to make those changes to the application? Okay.
I believe that's covered in her letter.
That's correct. There was a letter from the
This letter
engineer.
covers this.
Yes, okay, and that's their response to Jack's.
And Jack,
Letter.
John Knight's letter is covered,
Yep.
okay?
From before.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm looking through my notes.
It's all right.
I think it's
You are much more
Helpful.
articulate than me. You presented it.
Agreed.
You did a good
Well,
job, Lisa.
You did the job.
poor folks.
Well,
Well,
you know,
this kind of stuff comes before this board, planning board, board of selectmen all the time, so we're
And when it's
familiar
your-
with it, but,
And when it's your neighborhood,
Yeah.
well, it's tough.
important.
It's really
It is
tough.
Yes, it is.
It is. It is. I think that the point is that it happens in every neighborhood. All of the things that they're worried about can happen, doesn't matter where you live.
Right.
We just have no control over who,
This particular type, we have very little control.
right. But in general, in home ownership
You don't
terms,
have
you
control of
over
who's
who's
next
going to
door.
move next to you.
True.
No.
yeah, and in terms of granting the waiver or not granting the waiver,
We have little-
we don't grant the waiver.
Right.
Hackler.
someone else will do it, and then we
They'll
don't
do our job
have
for us.
much control whatsoever. I'm happy that it goes towards our quota. I know it's minuscule, but every bit helps, and it shows that we're complying, and we're...
I'd rather have it
that.
be
Yeah,
the housing
A
authority
housing plan requires how many a year right
making
now?
the difference.
Currently, our housing plan is expired, so we're working to, on a new housing plan
Well,
that
that-
will then hopefully, it
What
will
was the
eventually
old
get
one?
accepted by DHCD. So the old housing plan was based upon either 1990 or 2000 census data. This new plan will be based upon 2010 census data.
Okay.
In either way, either housing plan, if we were going with the old one or our draft new one, this would not bump us up to that 0.5% to stop any additional 40Bs to come in.
Okay.
Because the unit
Well,
is
that's
5
interesting to
units.
know.
So in the whole scheme of things, that would not bump us up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that the board should do is, are we okay with sewer? Are we okay with water? Drainage, landscaping, the general view of the buildings, are they in conformance with the neighborhood? Mel addressed the sidewalk concern, the privacy concern. So the number of units, are you okay with that?
I again was at the property, the lot, twice there today. I was there again. And if you just look at the map, it's a very large lot.
It's 28,000 square feet.
It's a very large lot, and the 3 structures that are being proposed, there's more than 20 feet between them. It's like 38 or something.
I believe this is a residence B2?
Yes.
Okay, so a single house would be 12,500. Okay, a duplex would be 16,000. So we're not so far off just on our regular kind of zoning.
Yeah, I think it
Right.
appears to be a different scale to the abutters because it just does. And
Yeah.
once it's
Well, sure.
improved, it's probably going to fit into the neighborhood better than they would ever imagine.
Yeah.
I think the design is
I think they did a
very
great
nice,
job
actually.
considering what they
I
have to
think
work
part of the
with.
important things are screening in the back with, if not a fence,
Plantings.
plantings. And I think plantings actually are better because, as you said, you went back there, you can't see the house.
You can't.
Okay,
And if they're not
This is the time of year
clearing,
that you would see it, and if they're not clearing.
right, there's a lot
okay?
of brush back there, and
So that would be that stormwater management.
Yep.
That was addressed.
He talked about it.
Okay, so that's the stuff coming off the roof and into the
Goes on
ground.
the leaching field, recharges.
Yeah, which will, eventually all of us will be taxed for. Yeah.
what happens, okay, so Jack's looked at, our town engineering department has looked
Yeah.
at the current plans. How else will the town be involved as that all gets done? Inspections and,
Sure. So, as you heard, they went before the Conservation Commission to see if they triggered any conservation review. They do not, because they're further than 100 feet from the wetlands and further than 200 feet from the riverfront area. The next step, if this board chooses to approve the project with or without conditions, and it does or does not get appealed to the Housing Appeals Committee, they would have to go through every standard procedure with the building inspector to get building permits on the property, tie into the sewer, so they'd have to go through the sewer and water permitting process. They'd have to go through the driveway permit process with the highway superintendent. So it follows every other standard requirement that any other housing development in town would go through. They're not asking for waivers from those requirements.
and I'd like to add, if it goes through, and this property is owned by the housing authority, the neighborhood can go to the housing authority, in addition to the town, with any issues
Sure,
that
I'm
might
sure the
arise
town-
after
They
it's
can
been
do that
developed.
anyway. They can do that,
Well, I'm saying it's the Shrewsbury Housing Authority and not New Hampshire, whoever, if, somebody else bought the
the state.
property and put an
Yeah.
apartment well, that wouldn't have
The only
happened,
thing that
but
would take it out of town is hack,
heck, okay.
whatever. it's-
Oh, yeah, Housing Authority.
Yeah.
The traffic, the one woman did mention, things that we can't deal with, the trucks going off onto Ridge Road, and she
Now, if you
feels
look
that...
at Ridgeland Road.
Ridgeland Road.
There's a sign there that trucks of only a certain
are allowed.
weight can go down that road, so that's not going to change.
Right.
Right, but I do want to talk about traffic and the impact that this property might have on it, and we have a,
Yeah. How much
Traffic
traffic are
report.
you going to have
Well, you
with 8
have 8 people.
houses?
You have-
yeah, and we
Yeah.
have a traffic report here, and I didn't, again, I've only been there twice, I don't know what it's like.
Yep, so we have a
But-
traffic report under tab 9
Nine.
stating that, you know, based upon the ITE, so the engineering trip manual that's generally used for all traffic engineers, that they would have a peak PM trip of 1 trip per unit. So a total of 5
trips.
Five
trips
more
in the
trips a
morning
day.
and 5 trips in the afternoon. Really, you see how many times do you go in and out of your own house during the day if you're running errands and
And if somebody is even a high-functioning,
A lot?
if somebody is a high-functioning disabled person, they're going to call the bus. So it's not going to be a car, it's going to be the Housing Authority bus.
Right.
So,
So at peak hours, we're saying one vehicle per unit. That's basically what,
Yeah.
that to me is not,
and it's not going to be that much.
that's not substantially detrimental.
I think that the traffic on that road, well, you live north of there, so
Yes.
that's a little
No,
different.
I live
but-
south of there,
Oh, yeah, just a little bit.
just a little bit.
And
And
long time...
remember, I don't live there anymore.
That's right. Long time ago, I lived south of there.
Yeah.
And that was the routine, come up South Quinsigamond, and take a right there.
Yeah.
To avoid the White City light.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
That
think
stinks.
that's the bulk of the traffic.
That's what happens on my street, too.
It's not
You can't
residences.
change that. That's not going to change with,
It's,
It's not going to change
More
anything.
people.
No.
yeah, it's not going to be changed.
no.
Now,
It's too bad.
the sidewalks,
Will be an improvement.
that'll be an improvement.
There are
Parking
none.
on the street
We'll be gone.
for a
Well,
while, but then you'll
no.
find it comes
It'll
back.
come back.
The
The only thing
restaurant.
that's not
Well,
going to
you've got the
happen,
curb cuts in the way.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you could fit a car, it looks like they're...
let's say, and fit a car in between each one, that would be 3 or 4.
Good point.
The other thing is that the only thing really that's going to suffer is the 4 cars that park overnight. They're not going to be able to do it anymore.
Whoever that is, right? Right.
And they're probably parking illegally.
Well, it's not their property.
Well, if
It's
you're...
town property, but
It's town property, so if they have permission from somebody, no matter how quiet it may be, nobody's been bothered there for all the years,
Right.
okay?
Other concerns?
well, I just want to make sure we cover the traffic. That's fine. That it's here instead of somewhere else in town, that unfortunately
my
is not an
backyard?
argument that we can consider.
No, especially where this property is designated
Yeah.
for
Yeah, it's
use.
deeded for
It's
that
more than
specific
zoned,
use.
it's designated.
It's designated, yeah.
And that's frankly when the argument should have been made.
Yeah. And, you
Well,
know,
in
the other thing
1988,
is, it was said and just rolled over, they could build 20 units on this property if they built a single
Apartment
unit.
complex. Yep.
And
Stacked
would
up.
that be better? I don't think so.
I
No,
think that the way...
not with the
The way
neighborhood.
those units looked, it is in keeping
It's
with...
going to fit right with the neighborhood, I
What
think.
that neighborhood
And
is.
if I misspoke by saying I had made a decision early,
Well,
I'm sorry.
that's...
Thank
yeah,
you.
Can't do that.
But
But I got saved by
well,
Lisa.
no. You especially, having been on the board so long, have seen this kind of stuff before, so you're more familiar with it, and you know
But
that
that
it's...
doesn't mean I should open my mouth
That's
as
okay.
much as I
I
do.
know, I know.
I'm surprised that the neighbors didn't have more knowledge that this was happening.
Well, that's classic communication, and
Right.
no need to know until
Right, don't wanna
you
know.
need to know. And legally, the town, let them know when we're supposed to, and this is what happens.
But
It's shocking.
to,
And this is their occasion to express their
Yes.
displeasure.
Yes.
Right. And you understand it. It was, some of the arguments were not appropriate, in my
Well,
mind.
because
Yeah, but
they
you
were in panic
But you
mode.
understand that when a person panics,
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
but,
say foolish
whatever they
things.
can. Well, they'll say whatever they
Right,
can.
well.
and-
And the biggest offenders usually say the most.
That's okay.
The issues
We got the
that you
real
wanted
issues
us to
in there.
address, have
We
covered all
understand.
of
Allowed
those?
to address.
I didn't write them down. Drainage.
Drainage,
Traffic.
we've addressed. Traffic, we've addressed. Water and
Landscaping.
sewer, we've had discussions with the water and sewer department, and they are fine with the connection. I believe the betterment was already paid, so that's fine.
Sidewalks.
Traffic and
Sidewalk is fine.
parking.
The last thing that we had on our comment letter was they had some plantings that were not Asian longhorn beetle safe.
Good
So
catch.
we've asked them to change that. And we've asked them to potentially change, if possible. They had shown handicap parking signs and paint on the pavement. We said, if this isn't a requirement of the grant, we'd prefer you not to show that, so it looks more like a neighborhood than
That's a good point.
complex units.
Very
So-
good point.
Good point.
Are these, if we were to approve this, are these incorporated into the decision?
Yes,
or-
they certainly would be, because we haven't received a revised plan set. So the decision, one of the conditions of the decision would be that all of our comments would be provided in a timely manner, certainly before a building permit were issued. And also in our decision would be if we voted yes or no to grant the waivers. So I'm not sure if you want to have a discussion about the waivers or any other issue.
Well,
with the
that,
plans.
well, I think I interrupted
I have, in terms of conditions, and additional conditions, I don't know what's in our purview, if that's the right word. The plantings or fencing, if we could word something.
screening.
That's screening,
Screening.
some kind of screening, but I don't know how.
Arborvitae's or something like that?
Something that's going to work within the existing,
Yeah. But
Which-
I don't think you
You
want
don't
anything
really
cut
need-
down. I think you
Yeah.
want it inserted in.
what's there, and insert some additional
Yes.
screening.
Because as Lisa said, you go back there, you can't see Mrs. Panarelli's house.
No, you
Right.
can't.
I couldn't see it.
Right.
You can't see it from there. And listen to the time of year, look at the time of year
Right.
it is. This is the time of year when things thin out that you should be able to see it.
Right.
So how do we,
I think,
that's, to me, is not a sticking point, but it would be a nice effort to,
We could
Suggest
point
it?
that screening would be proposed if possible
If
and
possible.
reviewed by the engineering department and the
Okay.
building inspector
That's
to
good.
the best of the ability that they can provide it.
I prefer that over something rigid.
Yes, I do also.
And I don't mean a rigid fence, I mean a rigid
Condition.
decision,
Condition.
rigid
Yeah.
condition.
and the other neighbor to the property, I don't believe was
To the
here.
east.
And, you know, I don't want to, just because they weren't here, to me, that's where the screening should be, but,
You can't,
close
he's up
enough.
higher.
Okay.
He's about 20 feet up
Or
in the air.
plantings, but I think there were
Yeah.
on the other side of
Because
the curb
when
cut.
they widened South Quinsigamon, they took
That's true.
a lot
He
of
is
his
up.
land,
That's
and his
true.
driveway went like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's another condition that is probably not within our purview, but the, everybody cares about this, right? But, and they mentioned it, so let's address it. Violence and crime, possible increase in violence and crime. What do you do, what do they have, what can they do? They just call the police, right?
Well,
I
would
think that's I think that's an,
I think
I
that's
can
a no-
understand the concern, but I don't think
it's
I don't think it
real,
happens.
but
I don't think.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think you can tie that
No.
fear to the
I
construction
think
of this
housing
project.
authorities over the last years, and housing apartment owners over the last years have addressed that by the fact, the way they write their deeds, you can be out of, I mean, their leases and
Leases.
rents, you can be out of an apartment in 20 days or less.
And we did hear that.
If you
I
violate.
mean, we heard what the process was. I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that it's not within our
It's
realm.
not, it's not a
So
land
to-
use issue.
Right,
It's
it's not
not a
land use.
conservation
No.
issue. It's
Right.
not a zoning
No.
board issue. It's not a water sewer issue.
Right.
So we really can't state that. We can just call upon our police
You
officers.
know,
Yep.
just thinking,
Help
it's interesting that that neighbor on the other side wasn't there, and none of the neighbors from the extremely expensive condos were
Well,
here.
we don't know that.
Well,
Not
yeah, we
everyone's
don't, not
fault.
everybody was recognized, so.
They weren't here.
Okay, you know.
I know most of the people in there, and I didn't see any of them here.
Well,
Unless I
those who
missed it.
were,
Felt very passionately
yeah.
about
Yes,
And
they
I think
did.
we covered, I don't know, I'm
Hope you
happy
were
with covering
respectful.
everything
Yeah.
that
I
they
think that
addressed.
you did a really good job.
I do
Well,
too.
thanks.
Yep.
but
And I'm going to ask you from now on instead of you asking me.
She can teach you a thing or two.
I didn't know she can.
Well, no,
Okay.
I thank you as well for expressing a more compassionate point of view.
Yes.
I walk the shoes of others all the time. Everybody.
Do we have any other concerns, board members?
I don't.
I don't.
No, and, well,
We-
I can
well,
say
I
where
think-
I'm leaning,
I can-
if you want to
we
do
ga-
that, and then
we
maybe you want to
gave- We
discuss
gave
more.
Kristen the authority to write a decision, I think, didn't we?
Not yet.
Well, we
Not
haven't
yet?
voted.
No.
We have to vote.
First, we
I,
need to vote on the waivers before we could vote on the whole
right.
project.
Okay.
Oh, which,
Tell us about the waiver.
Those are in
yeah.
section 7. So the first waiver is from section 5F. Right now, our bylaw reads that on a single-family lot, you may only allow one single-family dwelling. So they're requesting a waiver that more than one single-family dwelling be constructed on a lot. They're requesting that two-family dwellings and one-family dwelling be constructed on this lot.
I move that we approve that waiver.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You wanted to talk more?
Well, I had nothing to say about that one.
We have approved that waiver unanimously.
And the next two waivers are dealing with our dimensional table, section 7, table 2. The first, the lot area requirement is 40,000 square feet, and they're requesting that the lot contains 28,512. I'm just going to check.
Why would it be 40,000?
I have that somewhere. B2.
For all, they're considering it all other uses. It's not a single family,
Oh,
it's
that-
not two
or-
family, all other uses.
It's not a
Yeah, it's this-
duplex.
So we advise them to
Okay.
be safe that they would consider 40,000 square
Okay.
feet and then
Yeah.
request the waiver for
Okay.
that for 28.5. So generally, if there was a single-family home, 12.5 would be the lot area required. A duplex, 1,600, as Mel stated earlier.
16,000.
1,000,
yeah.
excuse me. Yes.
1,600, I'm moving in.
And the setback from
just the
50 feet to
front.
23, more or less.
Right, so if we want to take them each separately, that's probably the easiest way to do it.
All right, then let's take the waiver of the 40,000-foot minimum square footage on the lot.
I think these things are set far enough apart that they're not obtrusive, and they will not derogate from the bylaw, strange as it seems.
And I also think it's in line with a lot of the properties surrounding it.
Yeah.
It,
It fits within the
Neighborhood
personality of the
standards.
neighborhood.
I don't
That's
think
It's in line with the
detrimental.
neighborhood.
Yeah,
Is
it's
there
like a neighborhood standard.
Can I have a motion to
Make a
grant
motion.
that waiver?
Make a motion to grant the waiver?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We granted that waiver unanimously. And now I'd like to consider the waiver of the 50-foot front yard setback to 23 feet more or less.
I don't think there's a 50-foot setback
there isn't.
on South Quinsigamon Ave.
There isn't. It
Anywhere.
doesn't mean it's okay, but
No.
The back of the
Down
houses
the right.
doesn't make the 50-foot setback.
Right.
Most of them. I don't see that. I
And-
don't think that's a problem, is it?
no, and I
don't see
think
the
they could have gone back farther and still been
Yeah,
within
and
the rear
then
setback.
what they would have done
Well,
is, they would have been
Impacted the
impacting the
Right.
houses in the back.
Right, I think it
I'd
was a
rather
good
impact the
solution.
street.
Yep.
Right. I'm in favor, so.
Do you have a motion to grant the waiver?
Move to grant the waivers stated.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The board has granted the waiver on the setback. And now we come to the comprehensive permit, correct?
Yes.
Any further discussion on the granting of the permit?
I would like to see it granted with the modifications that we suggested to Kristen in our discussions.
So that being the screening along the rear of the property line and any possible screening to the other property
The easterly line.
to the east.
As well, yeah.
And then that would be under the review of the engineer and the building department.
Yes.
And then the review of the bituminous concrete sidewalk versus the standard concrete sidewalk, if they're allowed to under the grant. And then again, that would be under the review of the engineering department and the building inspector. Was there one that I had missed? And that all plan requirements, as stated in the letter, are taken care of.
Does the sidewalk comply with our zoning bylaw? The 5 feet with the grass plot behind it?
That's
If not-
more of a subdivision rule and regulation than a zoning bylaw issue.
Okay, because this is more or less of a subdivision.
No.
No? Okay. I love being corrected.
No, it's just a bunch of houses on one lot.
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion on that with our conditions?
Make a motion to accept the...
Approve the comprehensive permit?
Comprehensive permit.
With the conditions as listed by Kristen.
Is that a second?
That's a second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. And the board has granted the comprehensive permit unanimously.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the board this evening?
I think just to sign the vote sheet on that, and if there hasn't been a signature on the zoning board of appeals rules and regulations to do that. I don't have anything further.
All right, we'll get that taken care of. On the rules and regulations, we didn't get Ron's signature.
Okay, we'll get that.
I need 3.
Yeah, we really only need 3 because it's not a special permit, but if he wants to sign it, he can come back and sign it.
You guys got such beautiful handwriting. Not Dale.
Who married us?
Yeah.
I don't know if I signed
If
that.
I
Is
had
that
a
the
short
rules and
name like Gordon, I might spell it out.
Right.
There's,
amendments? I don't have to sign the amendments, right, because I wasn't here at the other meeting?
right.
Okay.
You wanna read 'em off?
If I, well, okay, the,
I think we have to.
the special permit for Fifth Avenue, 9 Fifth Avenue, LLC, the subject property being 9 Fifth Avenue was approved unanimously. 9A, Fifth Avenue for the 9 Fifth Avenue LLC was also approved unanimously. The special permit, the LeBlanc permit for 7 Fairfax Street was approved unanimously, and the comprehensive permit for the Shrewsbury Housing Authority was approved unanimously with a board of 4 members.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
Inside a children's hospital. Each and every day, children's hospitals throughout the country create a single unified voice for children's health through their membership in Together for Kids. These hospitals care for all children in need, regardless of your ability to pay. I believe so much in the work that they do that I've decided to become a voice in advocating for the Together for Kids effort. I hope you'll join me. Learn more at Delilah.com.
Step right up, pick a card, any card. We won't believe your eyes.
Away with the pricing games. The gimmicks, the 4 a.m. sale.